is a big stage. Well, hello everyone. My name is Mika Newton. I'm the CEO of xCures. And I'll echo a comment I think that most people would make, which is really nice to do this not in front of a green screen in my dining room for so long. So let me tell you all a little bit about xCures. So at xCures, we have built a direct-to-patient and direct-to-physician technology platform with portals for both patients and physicians that enable these advanced cancer patients to get services from us. And they get two services off of our platform. Number one, patients who sign on to our platform get their medical records aggregated, organized, and structured into a personal health record. So advanced cancer patients move from many different providers, one provider to another. We assemble those records and we provide it back to them to use in their care journey with them and their physicians can also access these aggregated, structured records. The second thing that we do for patients and physicians, in the case of advanced cancer patients who have exhausted standard of care, can't tolerate standard of care, or have particularly poor prognosis, we provide them with a list of prioritized treatment options for their consideration. So these treatment options range from such things as standard of care, off-label on and off compendia, clinical trials, expanded access, compassionate use programs, right to try programs, the world of things that a cancer patient might want to consider doing over time. And in the process of having our technology platform operate and service these patients and doctors, we capture regulatory real-world data longitudinally across the entire cancer patient journey, going all the way from time of diagnosis until the final outcome. And we're able to access and work with these patients and run decentralized studies of various sorts, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So the platform provides direct and immediate value to the patients and their doctors and enables us to have a research instance on a national level in the United States. So here's how it works. Patients come onto our platform. I'll talk a little bit more about sourcing, but they generally come either directly to us through our website or our partners' websites, who are generally advocacy organizations and foundations and some clinicians. They go through an e-consent and enrollment process into a pan-cancer registry we operate called xCures. You can look it up on clinicaltrials.gov. Through that process, we leverage the patient's right of access to get their medical records from all of their providers. Patients can upload records. We can access their MyCharts or data directly using their logins. Their physicians can upload records to us, or we go directly to their medical records departments with their signed HIPAA release, and we get access to those records. They pass through our technology platform called xInform. xInform is our platform for patients. We have another one we launched actually just this week called xDecide, which is the physician version of that. And then the patients receive their personalized treatment options. They receive recommendations for all of the different types of things that I described. They are eligible for participation in tumor boards, so we actually organize and run expert panels to help advise patients in the case that there's some equipoise or difficulty making decisions, and they receive access to insights on what they could do in order to try and address their current condition. So the challenge in putting all this together when we started doing this about 3 years ago is that you can access this data. It's out there, but under the patient's right of access, what you generally receive is a fax. So frankly, in between different hospital systems, when they exchange data, often it's done via electronic transfer. But in oncology, most of the interesting and important stuff is in progress notes, MRI, pathology, interpretation, et cetera. And so most of that data is actually unstructured. And in most cases, as a separate entity, you'll receive it by fax or in a big box in the mail or in a CD-ROM or whatever it is. And so we built a system that could accommodate all of those different items. And we bring it on board and we use our proprietary NLP and named entity recognition processes to be able to structure that and put that together, and we can do that on a continuous basis. That data ends up in this IRB-approved master protocol. So as patients go through the consent record, we are following all of the processes and good clinical practices that you would need in order to capture that data, both having the source document, provenance of the information, as well as the structured data in the end in a Part 11 compliant database. We use a combination of CDISC and M-code in terms of the ontologies that we end up with the data stored in. And we can operate in real time with the patients and actually run PRO. So we were running for quite some time CTCAE as ongoing patient-reported outcomes survey. We've recently running a project using EQ5D. So we're in active interaction and consent with the patients. So Why is this important? Number one, we get the full record. So again, I'll go back. The full record of the patient from time of diagnosis all the way through whatever the final outcome is. It's retrospective at the time that they index on, and then it's prospective going forward as they interact with us on our platform. We are in direct contact. We have a relationship with the patients as they are on our platform. So if they're still alive, which is where we're trying to help them stay, we can be in contact with them, and we can target specific populations of patients. So we can reach out and market to and engage specific patients, either through advocacy organizations or through direct-to-consumer marketing. And that allows us to do a huge amount of prospective, real-world observational research. What's really important here is we think this is truly patient-centric. Our exchange with the patients, right, which is done, our platform is provided at no charge to the patients and the doctors, provides direct and immediate value to the patients in terms of managing their disease conditions. And it allows us to prospectively target and work with specific groups of patients where we have areas of interest for research and or advancement of any particular program. And this is up and running. We don't have to start up a study. It's running. It's running today. Any of you or your family members could go sign up for our services right now. You would index onto the platform. If we had a program that was ready for you to start, if you wanted to start a new program, we would have it up and running within literally a week to 2 weeks, mostly around the marketing and strategy is where the time components would be for Delight. So we acquire this data through our partnerships. So to give you an idea of the type of partners we actually emerged from a nonprofit organization called Cancer Commons, which has well over a decade of experience working with advanced cancer patients, both in navigation and advocacy. We have a partnership with the Musella Foundation, which is a large brain cancer patient advocacy organization. We just recently announced a relationship with Colon Town, which is a community of some 6,000 plus colon cancer patients and their families, both interacting on Facebook and in a patient education portal called Colon Town University. So those are kind of larger organizations. And then we work with rare cancer organizations such as FibroFighters, which is focused on fibrolamellar hepatocellular carcinoma, which is an extremely rare disease affecting probably 200 patients per year in the United States or so on. So we can deploy directly around the needs, right, and the communities represented by these types of organization. And what we get are completely consented records. These are records that are suitable for synthetic controls. We can do efficacy, safety, and quality of life research. We can help navigate patients to clinical trials, to other research programs. We are involved in their lives. And we can help manage access programs, both managed access like expanded access or other patient assistance programs. And throughout all of it, we get real-world data collection at a regulatory grade. So let me give you a couple examples of some studies that we're running on the platform today. So in this case, the sponsor is developing a second-generation targeted therapy, and they would like to gather some real-world data on the mutations that are driving resistance to the first-line therapy. And so in this case, that data does not exist to support future study design or for target validation or for these upcoming clinical programs. So in this case, the sponsor has been willing to pay for cfDNA testing, both urine and blood, both on progression of the cancer patient and suspicion of progression. So what we do for them is we reach out in the community that they're interested in. We talk to those patients and the advocates who are the physicians and then the advocacy organizations that are advising those patients. We provide them with engagement. We provide direct-to-patient engagement. We've coordinated phlebotomy services for the patients to actually get testing at home, in their homes. And all of the logistics basically are coordinated through us. We tend to work through other vendors and partners in that space. And what comes back is the data, essentially, from this ongoing genomic testing. That's valuable for both the patient and the physician for ongoing treatment and management of the disease and for understanding what's going on, potentially making additional treatment decisions. And it's valuable for our sponsor. So we're able to combine both the needs of the patient, the physician, and the sponsor, and doing it all, putting the patient's interests first. This is another program that we're running. So we run an expanded access program for a product called ulixertinib. It's a novel ERK inhibitor. What we did with the sponsor in this case is that they are pursuing a traditional phase 2 program. They have their own clinical study design that they're often running. but they know that their product will be used in multiple combinations. There's about 4 or 5 different combinations of therapy that one could expect to use with this particular drug. And they know that it appears across a wide range of solid tumors and disease types. And so the question becomes, from a strategy perspective, which patients, right, which combinations, what is the best design? So while they pursue the traditional method, we are also running a real-world signal-seeking study at the same time, in which we're collecting and sharing data real-time from patients all across the United States. And to give you an idea of how quickly that's gone, we launched the program in October of 2020. We've had over 75 expanded access requests approved by that particular sponsor. Interestingly, we've had several complete responses. And so going back to the patient in this case, in one case for certain was a patient who was entering hospice care, who came to this program and now is disease-free. And so being able to impact even that one patient in this way is incredibly interesting. But as we look across the board of patients who are responding to this, we are starting to see those signals. And so we've already been able to provide the sponsor in this case information that will begin to inform future study designs. And frankly, we're able to reach out on their case and actually get tissue samples and other materials from the patient over time. So I'm going to skip that slide. A lot of seeing eyes chart there, but currently, to give you an idea of what the uptake is, so people ask me, like, how many patients are really using this thing? This month, we'll help about 130 patients. By Q1 of next year, we'll be helping on the order of 300 plus patients per month. And the scaling capacity we built on the technology platform takes us to tens of thousands of patients per year pretty quickly. What's interesting is this is completely decentralized. So even to date, we've worked with well over 500 sites across the United States. And by sites, we mean individual level physicians, leading cancer institutions. Think of the leading academic institutions in the country. We get data from them. Think of community oncology centers. We get data from them. And we've touched over 750 oncologists, and we've already seen, even in the past week, uptake for the direct physician platform. And let me explain that to you. So I was speaking to a gentleman who's a community oncologist in Baton Rouge. He sees on the order to 20 to 25 oncology patients per day. He spends 15 to 20 minutes with each patient. You can imagine he's got a pretty busy day. These are some very sick individuals. In order to assess the case of each patient as he walks from one room to another, he has to consult up to 6 different EMR systems, potentially. There's his hospital EMR, his practice EMR, 2 pharmacy-based EMR systems or data repositories, laboratory data systems. So you can imagine, as a busy treating physician, that is a lot of information to synthesize. Secondly, when he walks into the room and addresses a patient, particularly an advanced patient who's exhausted the standard of care or isn't responding or is in a really bad state, he has to try to remember all of the things that are out there, all of the clinical trials that might be available, all of the newest research, which drugs were recently approved. And I can tell you that before working with us, his chosen method was a WhatsApp chat that he had with some of his friends and colleagues in the space. So being able to share and synthesize knowledge about what's out there, to get the information on the research and the opportunities into the hands of the patients and the physicians is truly impactful. And lastly, to be able to capture the data. So we started xCures on the idea that if everybody would just share the information, if we could create a knowledge exchange where we could learn in real time, we would be able to understand what does or doesn't work when one is trying to treat advanced cancer. And when we saw something that wasn't working, that was futile, we would be able to stop doing it. We would be able to tell patients, don't go there. Don't do that. That's not working. And when we did see something that was working or had a signal that it might be working, we would be able to redirect resources and patients and physicians to be able to pursue that in research, to be able to validate those signals. And in doing that today, we've consumed and structured millions and millions of records, actually way more than 1 million at this point. And so that's it. So thank you so much for your attention and time. And that's xCures. Thank you.